E whaatalo whaatu fo i Samoa, i lau mai moanga masani a fiafio aso sa i lunga o le televisi tolu i Samoa. Ai mai se foi le mai mo mai i Samoa i so se vaenga o le kelope i lunga o le upengo whaamatalanga le YouTube channel ma le Facebook a le Talanoa Live. O le tātou por kalame masani foi le nei Sunday with Teleiai, ta lofa lava. E mo foi ona momoli whaasangi ma le whaapolo le tapa au le langi. Whaafitai le tua lo olofa i lau pule soifua ia Samoa le atunu pele. Ai mai se foi le soifua lau lei o lo tātou atunu o lo alala i atunu mamau. O le whaawawina le nei o le tātou por kalame whaasolo Samoa mo Samoa. O lo tu maupea ni usila i sama vavao o le koviti. Lea o lo iai au kilani i le la sanga wha, au se atu nisi o vaenga o ni usila i le la sanga lua. Tūlanga o lo iai au kilani o le aitele o lo totele o tātou tangata o lo alala manopia iai. Ua maita wina ai ia whale tonu tūlanga o ngā luenga. Ma ua afia ai le tūlanga o le tamau ainga. Ma ua totele fo i lao tātou tangata ua afia i mana onga i tūlanga o tau mafa wale tau singa o le ainga. O le polkalame la le nei, o le amai moa inisio au auaunaga o tāpena i ele malo pei o na iai le Pasefika Futures. Maana ngā luenga, i whaatino ai le tufa i nātu o pusa mea ai i ainga ese i tutonu New Zealand, e le ngato Samoa o le Pasefika, ai so se ainga ua mawhatia. Lea sa fe ai le tātou polkalame The Village Community Service, lea o lo taitaia e le fionga ia la uli, Michael Jones ma le falitua ia Maliena. Faapea foi le auaunaga a le Mount Wellington Integrated Healthcare. Lea sa saunoa le sunga ia John Kiria. Ai e foi se moli maua se tasi o ainga Samoa sa mawhai o na maua le nei fesoasoani. O se vaenga la le nei o le reporti.
Tātou iai nei whaingatā ona o le COVID-19 iwa. E ui lava ina ua la whai e isi le whaatuatua i le atua. Ai ua whaamanatu mai upo le nei pese o le viinga i le atua. So ia le masa o salo. Ai whaatuatua pea i le atua. Loa inga ma le ekalesia pele. Tātou whaatuatua i le atua. Awa o ia lo tātou tautai mata palapala. O le ala fo i lea e mo miai lo tātou ngā lue whatasi. Au mea whatasi. Ma mulu au foi le nei teimi o le wha o le wha mai o le COVID-19. E mauti no lava. Na o le atua e mawhaia o na wha foina lo tātou sā. Ina iauri masao atuai i whanua. I le lasi o whamanyanga. Ma le soifua whaafualoa. O no Yesu toitu. Amene. A puipuia oe. Wa saonga le mu foi lo ainga. Tatou ngā rurue whatasi.
Talofa tufilau, we are a whānau ora provider, so we provide mentoring and youth family support, but we also are a food bank, so to anyone in the community. At the moment, there's a huge demand. We have demand right throughout the year, but particularly in the lockdowns, it's sort of a skyrocketed demand. This lockdown is definitely a lot busier. A lot of our families are needing a lot more support. I think a lot of our families were struggling already, and then come level 4, if they're not able to be at work, we're a lot busier, and it's not just us. A lot of organizations are saying the same things, that our families are definitely doing it tough, so they're all needing a lot of support. We're in Central West, so we service a lot of our West Auckland families in the central area, but still predominantly out south and even as far as Pukekoi and all over Auckland. We're only providing food support, so that's the only there. But you know, I know a lot of families. The biggest thing we hear is that, like, with winter just finishing and they've got high electricity bills, they're struggling to just pay those off, and therefore, if they're using their money on other bills at the time, food sort of becomes less of a priority. So they're grateful to be able to get the food support. We have our office number on our Facebook page, which we can give you all that information. Just give us a call or find us on Facebook, the Village Community Services Trust, and we've got information how you can just apply for a food parcel.
2 years ago, I moved over with my family under the Samoa quota scheme. We literally arrived 2 weeks before the first lockdown. Now, at the time, I was working as a central worker at a gas station, so I had employment and I had money coming in, so I didn't really feel the effect of the lockdown financially. A couple of months ago, I changed work from working at the petrol station, and currently working as a civil engineer or in civil construction, and it's just a way for me to further my career and hopefully progress into that path to help my family as well in the long term. But I really felt it was really hard for me to cope financially during this lockdown. I've been at home, I haven't been working for almost a month now, and I live in a 2-bedroom house right here behind me, and I'm paying $500 a week in rent alone, and the subsidy itself is only, I think it's $515. So all of that comes in and it goes through paying the rent for my family. I'm a dad of 3 kids, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-month-old son. So my wife doesn't work, obviously have to look after the baby, so I'm the only person that works in my family. So apart from the help that we're getting from the government through the benefits for the kids, you know, there's no other way for me to pay the bills in terms of rent, the power, electricity, and everything else. But I'm grateful that ASA, I came in contact with ASA through my local pastor. He was, as he always does, you know, he calls me a few times a week, you know, during this lockdown, just to see how we're doing. And so the help through the ASA Foundation with, in terms of food, has been a great help for me and my family to survive, you know, the hard times that we're facing now. So I just want to take that little time to give you my background and tell you a little bit of my story with my family.
Firstly, thank you for this opportunity, but before I tell you what we do, let me expand what we kind of like from a nutshell. Firstly, we are one of the arms or the partnership with Pasefika Futures, and here in Auckland there's quite a few. Out west we have our colleagues, the Whono, and then we have the village community, which is run by Michael Jones and his wife and the organization team. We also have the Pacific Home Care. We also have students, and we also have the team in Mount Ross, in Onehunga. But for us, based in Mount Wellington, we help with not food parcels, but we do food vouchers. The demand is huge. The first week it was okay, but then since the extension, it just hit the roof. You know, everybody is just, it's a big need out there in the community. And you can see, you can feel the heart of our mamas and papas that are desperate for some help. There are 2 ways for that. Number one, there's an 0800 number where some people don't have credit or thing to ring, where you'll be able to ring the 0800 number, 0800 890 110. And then on that, sometimes then it'll tell you which suburb you are in, and then you just choose the suburb you're in. For example, we had people ringing all the way from Masterton. It sounds like they weren't listening to the call, to the message, which suburb to ring. If you look on the website by the Pasefika Futures, you'll see our clinic office, which is 0927686640, or you also have my mobile, which is 021-023-77746. And I know that a lot of people have been ringing through. If you can, text me, ring me, and then text me, what is your name, what's the situation, and I'll call you right back. But some people just send, sometimes they're not thinking, they say, I want food packets, that's it. No name, it just makes it harder and longer. If they had given the information that I will need, it will speed up the process in helping them. One is the language. Some of them, they're texting me in Tonga, texting me in Samoa, thinking that I can speak. That's one of them. Number two, it's the providing of simple required information, like either a passport, a driver's license, or an 18 plus, or a Kiwi access card. Something that will verify that this is a real person. Some people, when they ring, they get angry, telling me, what do you need my personal info for? It's just part of being transparent that we've given it to a real person, not just to a makeup person. So our people need to understand this is the only reason why we're asking your information. It's not going to go anywhere else. It's just going to be with you, with us, and with our mothership, which is PFL, to capture all that information so they can ask for more funding to support our community at large. And sometimes our Pacific people are too reluctant to put their hands up to say they have a need. Sometimes it's too much ego, sometimes it's in shyness, but sometimes it's just the lack of information. I think just encouragement to our people. If you're ringing for some voucher, these are the required information that I need to have. Number one, you gotta have an ID, a passport, a driver's license. Some don't have either. A birth certificate will be sufficient enough, and your address, the number of people in your home, and also if there's any health issues, within the home, like for example, dialysis or heart issues, asthma, eczema, all that. We need to capture all this information so that we'll be able to state, yes, this is real family, they really need big help. And number two, the age of everyone in your home. Some, when you ask them what's their age, they get offended. And some, when you ask, can I have your ID? Or, you only have food bank, why should I give you my ID? So, sometimes our people need to get off their high horse and just look at what is your, look around you. There is a need for your family. We can help. We're here to help. We don't turn anyone away. But the problem we have, we may be a bit slow, but we will get there. We will get there to get you to help. So, thank you for the opportunity. If they got no other questions, but I encourage people, please be patient, be nice, call. And if you call once, and if you call twice, you're not there, please keep calling, or even text me, or email me.
Sa mo leo o tongai mo mai i le whaasoa i se tāpenanga auaunaga le malo New Zealand whaapitoa mo le tufa i nātu o pusa me ai mo ainga o loo pangatia ma mo mia taumafa i le vaitaimi o sama vavao o le koviti. Aua nei no fua ilu tātou tunu, au fo ine i matamuli, o nei tāpenanga uma, ne tapena mo aso Faapea nei, ia maua i se fesoasoani mo lou ainga. Vala au loa telefoni ma no fuanga pe o na whaelo atu. O le awhaise malolonga a fo i mai, o na tātou wanga i lea i se oto tonga, o le whaasoa 9 AM Talanoa Live na iei ina nawa yaso.
Le Le koko Samoa le lei masilisilo na manongi mai Samoa. Se whawhetai koko Samoa Kids. Maua nei le Pasefika Market I Manurewa. Le marketi Samoa I Papatoetoe. Whapele ulutoa en Sansi Otahuma Avondale. Wa mawhai fo yona lafu atu le meli lo maota. I soa se vaenga o New Zealand. Mala au le olua tasi ono tasi walu o whaalua. Maka ukia whainga le koko Samoa Kids.
Fai wo te uti le seleni mana o mea wawe se fesoasoani mo so se faalavlave. Vili mai loa le faalavlave longs I le olua tasi, olua iwa, lua ono fitu o. Olua tasi, olua iwa, lua ono fitu o. Matala noa I le fionga ia tofilau esta tofilau. Mo sau nono ngā tupe. E iai ngā whapitoa. Mana tua le Pasefika Market I Malurewa I asa whaile te tasi mai le valu taia o li tolu lea fiafi. Tele le vaisalo, koko hesi, whaausi, pia sua whai, koko alaisa, keke pua amare keke mamoe, mole malu taia o, maua le mutalo, luau whai ahia, le size tu, matau mafa SS, onongi le papa kiu muri pipi, male mamoe, tele lava ma mea taulima Samoa male Pasefika, afia mai loa I le iwa lima Browns Road I Malurewa, Pasefika Market I asa whaile te tasi.
Samoa o se ototonga le nei o le whaasoa te tai o le Pasefika pe o na ia yaso te tasi 9 AM Talanoa Live. A ua mo ai foi se avanoa le neva yaso e talanoa ai mo pulenga o le soifua maloloina. O le tanto malo mo mua le fionga ia whipule ai, manche whipule ai. O ia leo purisili o le counties manukau DHP e ia le pulenga o le Middlemore Hospital whapea fo I le tele o no whanga o le MIQ. Peitai o iolo iai se mai tau olo iai whaale tonu I le waaia ma le tau singa o tātou tangata e peo na lau lunga, luaso I lunga o televisi I tonu New Zealand le whaale tonu lea. Wa wala tātou le ono se lau o tātou tangata Samoa ua maua I le Delta variant. O New Zealand ni ufisili sātu inantu I le afionga I awhipule ai. Teleiai, Manji, we will start with your end. The last couple of days, there have been concerns raised from inside the hospitals and from MIQ regarding some of the care our people are getting. Ole popolenga ona yeia se mai taufoilea eleo atoatoa le vainga ona wavave ona discharge nisi. Onisi o lo taufia MIQ, which were not set up for health care. Yeah, ole facility later, if you can make a start and acknowledge your presence, is what have the health leaders done to the situation? Last mea wo fai moria fafi tauli puleai.
El te family atu, we apologize. Faapea wile we have missed or be was se sele makuto faalongo I mele mana o mia tato tangata leo I MIQ mafali mai. The way that our health is set up in the hotels. Lei nurses, my doctors, e fesoasoani mo tangata pa e nofo I quarantine. We don't stop people from going to hospital, but we know now that because we have many more Samoans. If you remember, we e masangi mo tangata e nofo I hotel mo tangata mai fafo for returnees who come from overseas. But this time round, we have gone from maybe 100 people, Pauline, 3 weeks ago, to over almost 500 now. So there are elima salau tangata leno for the Tatu Hotel.
Fepuleai and also Geraldine, are you aware, April last year, we warned the government, these leaders here and many others, we made a presentation to the Ministry of Pacific People and inform our people and the government with a letter to be mindful of the very thing that's happening right now. Auaunaga fio tātou tagata Pasefika, compounding elements that will come with it. And you have just highlighted Majile Tūlanga lea. So we are now in a situation where you are reacting to the issue that was raised April last year. Are you aware of that concern that we warned the government, the community transmission o tātou tagata, awafo ilanga eleto tolu le ainga peto Faapea le palangi. Many of the families are 5, 8 to 12. I know of a family of 12 that are in quarantine right now. That triples the pressure on the system. Was the Ministry of Health aware and prepared for what's happening with our Pacific now? Teleiai, and then maybe Geraldine can come in.
Yeah. So I didn't see the letter, Teleiai, but our preparation was to make sure that we had enough hotel rooms, because we knew, and last year our health team made a policy that if we find COVID positive in our families, we would offer to the whole family isolation and bring them together. That's why we went very quickly from 1 to 3 hotels. We have a separate hotel that we have also made available to our families. We can't isolate at home by ourselves, or we have some in quarantine. We have house some of our families who are contacts in the hotel to make it easy for our families to separate.
Atole tau sanga na o toile minister lona winga ola eva tua numi matongi le la pisi le minister pa mole o ato polo sese e o tua tu si Faapea nei ila o fionga, and whoever needs to go to ina ia ausia to inga me Faapea nei pe atu lai mafatianga Faapea nei o le atunu ai mai se Samoa.
And I think just on the letter, I think while it went to ministers, sometimes what ministers do is and I will ask Geraldine if we can see the letters, they will give us instructions to make sure that we are taking the advice that you gave to ministers. So I will follow up with Geraldine to get that letter, and we will have a look at it and make sure that we are responding to all the issues that are raised. Faatalanoaga mo Fisili.
O leo ua maua ma saunoa Pulai o loo iai fo mai ai mai se foi o tamaitai tau si soifua I totonu o MIQ. Po o le ale ne tūlanga o iai wa pese I ese lea o I lau mai tau foi le iai ona e pese I le o maua le lei o loo iai ni fo mai ai mai se au tātou tangata le iai totonu. Beito tono facilities ia. Pe whawhiona la tau sile fiolo iei fo mai on site. Pe o fo mai ia e manaumia e o atu itua e siaki la tau I teimi uma. Wa o tangata ia lau mamai. Ai pese I o le mai tau atu e le o tele se ngā se staff o lo tono o le MIQ mo na ia tātou tangata.
About on site, and if I also familiar to but Pauline, there are nurses on site 24 hours, 7 days a week, and just to help us understand, when you are in a quarantine for 10 to 14 days, every day everyone is rung twice. To check their welfare, to check if they have symptoms. E te manatua e te re tangata e maua le COVID positive, but for ele mai. So you can be positive but not be sick. So they are rung twice a day. If they fully test day 1, the 3rd day, the 5th, 6th day, and the 10th day. Or lisimia, when people are sick, they can push 0, and the team, if they need to come up to the room to look and assess people, they can do that. And the doctors are available on the phone and in the quarantine we have a doctor on site. Is Pauline, is that correct?
E follow up level facility le mai ana nafi. E maua mai manu o lea ua iai lo tau mamalu. Po o tala whea ngai le follow up so o vaenga nei o lo follow up ina le tu Samoa lava ia. Ai mai se fo e leo whapito na o Samoa se facility. Pe ma whai una whai lo mai e tu Samoa tau awai mai. O tu mau le follow up le te tono MIQ places ma tu langa Faapea. O na o langona e afo i leo le whano no pe awhai e o fo i ai le au nanga o le taliina o tusia le nei vaenga. Ia pe whapena se facility au te loa nana maua i le facility mo lo whalo lava.
On the question about follow-up and the MIQ, I think one thing that we have to be better at learning, and if you have family in the quarantine facilities, a little like COVID-19, that can be a problem. It's the other illnesses, or if our families have diabetes or heart disease, it's helpful to us if it's also things like that we can help people look after, because that's the condition that we don't know because we are always looking for COVID. So the follow-up when people come out of hospital, I hope that was your question to Manu.
O la usile na usile na po fa mole pole ai ma Jordan o to ia sa il fono le na po na usile ile ya opito ele family ina o le tali la usile ale la utuli lo atu tai on ne o usile no usile an po le ase me al kabineta me tanga luenga o fai mo fa na wia pe a fai admit i se teimi fa vave ma tu e to lo o le tamama kina o lea se support pe fa feona support ma resource ta maiki nei pe a o ina admit ma tua uma ina ua test positive il fale mai sa ele family ina o tali no pola na o mai le tali falling mai e fa tali se i tupu mo le melia ona fatua react le fa ta auto se policy po se awala e fa akino le o nanga le melia.
Reverend Yeli, I know you asked the question last night, and I think my answer last night, ele senga le supporta tamaiti pae maliu tulo matua for any other condition. Maliu tangata tulo ile falmai. We have a hospital team that supports the family. If parents are positive, e kalangoa public health service se facility peengi si ainga mawhaina ba ai tamaiti, peengi fesoasoani maua le ainga, ale se fesoasoani, then we will put the social support around the children. E te manatua positive matua e manao mia mato e le maifo i tamaiti. So it's good if we try not to keep the children away so they don't get COVID. But we work with the family situation to try to do the best thing for the parents and the children.
Can I leave this with you, Teleiai? One is the ideal. It's a separate matter, the reality. We had a situation a couple of days ago where a yailato were discharged Avel MIQ, I leo malolosi. How many other Samoans and Pacific Islanders who are silent, can't speak up, they were discharged. Now they had to fight to come back into the hospital because the MIQs, eleo tapeneina as a health service. Reality lalena. So my question for Teleiai, can you give us assurance the problem has been fixed? No one else will have to go through this problem again of being discharged. They should remain in your care. And you, with Countess Manukau, really should be the ones that should look out for our people here at Middlemoor. Can you give assurance, more Tatu Tangata, the problem has been fixed?
I just want to help us understand that And to be in a hospital, there are clinical needs and criteria. There are things that the clinicians look for to get hospital level care. Now, sometimes we might feel sick, but we may not be sick enough to need hospital. That's why we put 24/7 care in the hotels. So we will work and talk to patients to make sure that we are meeting their needs and that we both understand what's going on in someone's care, to decide whether hospital is the best place or whether the hotels with all their care is the best place. People don't just because they want to be in hospital.
Very sorry. I don't think these people just wanted to be there. They are still in hospital, and I think they have now been reassessed. They need to be there, because if they don't need to be there, I'm sure we could discharge. These people are still there. And one of those patients that on arrival collapsed, now you can't tell me they are well enough to be in MIQ. So my question is, can you give assurance?
I'm not going to judge the decision.
Can you give assurance that this will not happen again?
So
from the care of the hospitals, family.
We put the trust in the judgment of the clinicians who are looking at the patient in that very moment, and they make that decision with the patient. I can't pretend that every situation, everyone needs to be in hospital because they want to be. It is important that all of our people are able to talk to the clinicians and make sure that we have all the information to make sure that we are putting people in the right place. And if they need to be in hospital, they need to be in hospital, and we will give them good care while they're in the hospital.
Samoa le na ua whaafafonga I le tali, a le whionga ia whipulea I maji whipulea ai. O le polisili o le pulenga le county se manukau DHP. E leo anto tōna whaamalie le ngona ona o le memoni o lo a whio tātou tangata e pe ona whaata otori ai I whalimai. No whanga nei o MIQ. O le awhaise malolongo fo I mai. Whesilingia lea o nisi o sui o pulenga ale soifua maloloina New Zealand. Ma e wholinga mai e te le atu le whaafi tauri o lo iai le teimile nei.
Le koko Samoa le lei masilisilo na manongi mai Samoa. Se whawhetai koko Samoa Kids. Maua nei le Pasefika Market I Manirewa. Le marketi Samoa I papatoetoe. Whapele ulu toa en Sansi Otahuma Avondale. Wa mawhai fo iona lafu atu le meli lo maota. I soa se vaenga o New Zealand. Ma la au le olua tasi ono tasi walu o whaalua. Ma ka ukia whainga le koko Samoa Kids.
Fai wo te uti de seleni mana o mia wave se fesoasoani mo so se faalavlave. Wili mai loa le faalavlave longs I le olua tasi, olua iwa, lua ono fitu o. Olua tasi, olua iwa, lua ono fitu o. Matala noa I le fionga ia tofilau esta tofilau mo sau nono ngā tupi e iai ngā whapitoa. Mana tua le Pasefika Market I Malurewa I asa whaile te tasi mai le valu taia o le tolu lea fiafi. Tele le vaisalo, koko hesi, faausi, pia sua fai, koko alaisa, keke pua amare keke mamoe, mole malu taia o, maua le mutalo, luau fai aia, le size tu, matau mafa SS, manongi le papa kiu, muri pipi, male mamoe, tele lava ma mea taulima Samoa male Pasefika, afia mai loa I le iwa lima Browns Road I Malurewa, Pasefika Market I asa whaile te tasi.
Samoa leo le a whawau le tātou mai moanga. Oto tonga o le 9 AM talano live le vai aso o tuanai. Lea la ua mawhaifoi ona fisilingia le sunga ya Geraldine Clifford Linston. O ia lea o le whaulu o mata upu tau soifua maloloina o tangata Pasefika I le matanga ruenga. Ma o ia whaelo ai le te leo se whaale tonu o loo whiangai mai lantou. Let's go to Geraldine. Geraldine, Paftaitele Molo Taimi, Oe Olo Yai Litulanga or Le Pulenga Le MOH. Were you aware that the leaders here and many other significant leaders, April last year, presented a concern to government? Geraldine, welcome on board.
I think there's a few things that I wanted to address in the first instance, and then I'll come to the letter. Teleiai. I think firstly, we need, if we put COVID aside and look at the health system, what we know, and many of the health professionals on this meeting will know as well, is that the health system for a long time has not worked for Pacific people in the same way that it works for non-Pacific people. So this is our basic fundamental challenge. What we know this because the way they measure the quality of a health system is how long people live. And in some areas of New Zealand, and most areas of New Zealand, Pacific people live at least 8 years less than Palangi people. So this is a fundamental flaw in our system. The challenge is when a system is fractured in this way for our community, when serious illness comes, it's very difficult to address it. So when COVID hit, what it does is it brings out all the problems in the system and highlights them, makes them so much worse. So coming back to the letter that you sent, which was received, I think, maybe a week that I was into the role, it was not only this group that was raising those issues, because there were many, many clinicians as well who were ringing Dr. Ashley Bloomfield, ringing ministers saying, you need to look out for this. This is going to affect our communities really badly. A lot of the Pacific health sector mobilised to try and solve this issue, but it's very difficult to do this when you're in a wartime situation. These are issues that need to be addressed when we don't have COVID sitting on our doorstep. So I celebrate this forum because going forward, these are the types of forums that we need to agitate in the system to help us to fix these problems. You can take Fepuleai out of the system, you can take me out of the system, you can take most Pacific people, probably not the nurses and the doctors. The system will still persist and the problems will still persist. So without this kind of forum for us to get together, it won't work. So the letter, so what I'm saying is the letter that you received was one of many, many approaches to the ministry and to DHBs about what the issues for Pacific are. The way the government responded was through an allocation of funding. There was 17 million and 19.5 million. The challenge for the ministry is that when we go to purchase services, we need to be supporting our own Pacific responses. And the way that we do that is primarily through our Pacific providers. And, you know, notwithstanding there are, the system can be quite fragmented. So welfare doesn't talk to health. But we have seen some wonderful examples through this COVID response, where the Pacific providers have really picked up and tried to respond as much as they can.
Falonga sarnoanga Geraldine o le system fa mai ele fit le system mo tangata Pasefika o le system e fit mo tangata palang ele ye nyasa fa ilonga lang wile sarnoanga. Pacific people were here for ages and are here to stay. It takes a while, but I think it's time to change the system, change strategies, change processes. It run now to tell me awa e yale time when a Pasefika yale atunu ya manuele.
I have a couple of questions, please, Geraldine. My ears pricked up when you mentioned that you received a letter from this panel last April, about 8 days or so after you you took up your post. Now, the question that I have is, what, if any, of those recommendations that were expressed or the concerns in that letter, what, if any, of those that you are aware of anyway, have been actioned? And secondly, in following up and in sort of tracking along the lines that our chairperson, Teleiai, has mentioned, it seems to me that are we not continuing, in spite of the concerns being raised from the ground level, from the people who are at the cold phase of this ministry, are we not continuing to pour resources and prop up a broken and already continue to flog a dead horse, so to speak?
Reverend Makisi, in order for me to, I don't have the letter in front of me, and I would need to go back to look at the specific recommendations in order to respond to your question. I think there's a couple of challenges, I think, for us. The first challenge is traditionally, the way that we express our relationship with the community is through our providers. Keeping in mind that what we, in terms of the ministry's relationship with providers, is that we rely on our providers to maintain that relationship with the community, and that the providers provide us with some guidance on the pulse of the community.
We are all aware that the system is a Palangi system, but there's a lot of our people that are suffering at the moment. How fast can you, because we know that there's a lot of gaps in the system. Communication is not good. Coordination is not good. Translating is not good. How fast can you look into this problem? And I know that the nurses are very, they're working so hard. And the doctors, it's all right for the doctors to say that they're going to move into these spaces, but it's the nurses that are doing all the work. Can you please, how fast can you look into this? Pamela Mole.
Thank you for the comments around nursing. We are looking at strategies to allow our nurses from the Pacific to maintain or get registration here in New Zealand, trying to fast track ways and those opportunities for them. Over the next 18 months, it would be really helpful for you to continue to maintain your interest in the health system as we go through some of these reforms, because that is our opportunity to address some of these key issues that you've raised. I don't think we can do it quickly, I'm sorry. But
Geraldine, we'll switch to Pauline Ilevainga or Wingol MIQ, but Pauline, ua yaia vainga fiena yo tatu tangate tutonu o MIQ. Some of the families, can I focus on the care of families? Because we know, o no fuanga ia, that a pena bola to ia to fo mai usually 1 or 2 people. I know what to like my letato COVID outbreak lene. O ainga wo failo mai matala no mai. Se wo matuate te mal fefefe. Ile tu watu le ta vale matangata pulo uma maofu. It was a scary sight for many of our families and the children in particular, because they were not prepared to be isolated. So the very first experience is a shock to their system. You know what happens when you are so scared? You can't even talk. Reality. So just because they are not talking doesn't mean it's okay. And the next morning we followed up after 12, and they respond, breakfast, and so when they called and said, oh, the bag of fruits that was given last night, that was your breakfast. That is not breakfast, Pauline. Now tell us what has been done. We raised the issue. Pasefika Future is now providing a box for our families inside. Why weren't MIQ looking outside the box? Ile vaenga le ole tausinga o tātou tangata. Maise le overload lea ma le tōtelo anga iatu. Lase me ua whai Pauline whaamul no mai.
I definitely want to acknowledge it is a shock for families that come in, and we have been working with our public health colleagues to ensure that families are getting all the information on what to expect when they come in, and also so that they know what to expect, but when they're tested, what to bring in with them, because if you don't know what's going to happen, it is going to be a scary time and you don't know what to do or who to call. So we've been working with the hotels as well to ensure that when people come in, they do have what they need, whether that's food or if they didn't come with, a lot of their toiletries, etc., that we're working with the hotel teams on that. Also been working with the clinical team so that they ensure when they're talking with the families daily that they are making sure that they know how to contact the health team so that if they do have any problems or issues they want to raise, they know how to contact the health team, but they are in contact every day. I saw in the chat there about meals and delivery. So the hotels do provide meals, but sometimes that's not enough, to be, to have food in between, especially if you have children. So we've been working with the Pacific providers to drop off parcels and food parcels and nappies, whatever families may need inside. So we have been working to ensure that communication, that information is there available for our families, and to have it translated into Samoan as well. It's been great having our Samoan translators on site to help the health teams and to help the families so that two-way communication can be as good as possible.
Another question, just along Whaamamole, being a nurse, to Pauline, and that is, you and also most of those senior nurses are Samoans. And I just want to add to this panel that it's not just about the patients, it's also about the nurses. I would like to add to you, Pauline, is the fact how we can help you, and particularly those nurses, and I know who you are, how we can help this. Well, we don't want the nurses to get into this other rubbish. We got work to do for our communities. How can we help you, help our people?
Around support with the other Pacific nurse leaders. I mean, I think that's definitely something that we can work on together on what that looks like, and happy to take you up on that outside of this meeting. Malo.
Sa mole o tonga le na 9 AM talo no live pe o na ele na va yaso o tonai. Yaso taitasi o lo fesoasoani taitai o le Pasefika mai se Samoa i tūlanga mata upolo a fia i o tātou tangata. Lea sa whaatasi mai ai le sunga le tamaitai ia Geraldine Clifford Linston pulenga le Ministry of Health. A mai se fo i le tamaitai ia Pauline Fuimono ofisa o lo iai MIQ. O le a whaise tātou malolonga a fo i mai o na whea leo le sunga le whaafenga ia Pastor Kevin Uluiva mo se whaamalosi o le neiva yaso.
Le koko Samoa le lei masilisilo na manongi mai Samoa. Se whawhetai koko Samoa Kids. Maua nei le Pasefika Market I Manirewa. Le marketi Samoa I Papatoetoe. Whapele ulutoa en Sansi Otahuma Avondale. Wa mawhai fo iona lafu atu le meli lo maota. I soa se vaenga o New Zealand. Mala au le olua tasi ono tasi walu o whaalua. Maka ukia whainga le koko Samoa Kids.
Fai wo te uti le seleni mana o me wave se fesoasoani mo so se faalavlave. Vili mai loa le faalavlave longs I le olua tasi, olua iwa, lua ono fitu o. Olua tasi, olua iwa, lua ono fitu o. Matala noa I le fionga ia tofilau esta tofilau mo sau no ngā tupi. E iai ngā whapitoa. Mana tua le Pasefika Market I Malurewa I asa whaile te tasi mai le valu taia o le tolu lea fiafi. Tele le vaisalo, koko hesi, faausi, pia sua fai, koko laisa, keke pua amare keke mamoe, mole malu taia o, maua le mutalo, luau fai aia, le size tu, matau mafa SS, onongi le papa kiu muli pipi, male mamoe, tele lava ma mea taulima Samoa male Pasefika, afio mai loa I le iwa lima Browns Road I Malurewa, Pasefika Market I asa whaile te tasi.
Le lava la ngona le malulu ni sila a o le koko Samoa malu tu I mai Samoa to o manga iai le nei vai tau mai pe on sila sioki fo le koko le nei vai aso le tala fifia aso ataiao te nu mai le sia tato supply mai Samoa ai sili ai ona mo le mafanfana pe apa I mai le tua yo tato tangata e mai se ni sila Australia ma Amerika ia afianga lo iai le COVID Faasoa ma le sunga I le faafengainga ia pasa Kevin Uluiva o se faamalosi mo le nei vai aso.
Talofa lava, malo le soifua, talitono lo manuia o I le alofa ma le anga le leo re tātou tapa ausili tai mai loutou soifua ma lo nei ola I le āmatanga o fe au mga aluenga o le nei vai aso. Ama ai le world system ma le whaangau yo inga o whinga whaavai o le lalolangi a wā le manuia o tangata o le lalolangi. Ia, o tele whaamai, tala o taua, o ngase inga o malo I so o se atunuu. E le tatonunga e le o yeise taimi lata mai e toa file muai. So o se atunuu lava, e yeilo na system o loo whaapeo na whaangau yoi a wale manuia o na tangata. Whaapea na foi company o pisinisi, e kalesia, so o se whaala putuputunga, e yei le system po o se whainga whaavai, e lima taita ia ai ia pe whaangau yoi ai, ina ia mawhai o na manuia. O le au le tala noa lai le system a tangata ma system o le lalolangi. Ai o le au tala noa I le system o le malo o le atua, na whai e le atua, ma ta iala, ma whaamanuianga mō na tangata. O le system la o le malo o le atua, na whaatusa ina I Yesu I le la au. Te tono le mareko e wha, na whaatusa I Yesu le malo le atua I le tangata na alu e lulu saito. Na alu lulu ona no fola ia ua moe ua ala ina yaso. Fo mai ua ola le saito, aina te leilo pe whaape I, ona o le atua o ia na te whaaola, pe na te whaatupuina. Ai ina ua ola ma ua tupu le saito, e iai lalo na la asanga po le system leo te fiatala no e foi mai, e mua o solo na lau, so o ailo na funga, o na matuala I olo na funga, ai muli ai le mea ta o le selenga. O le whaatulangana lea po o le system leo le malo le atua, e mua lava, to tō. Lona lua, whi mai e oso lona lau, lona tolu so o ai mo lona funga, lona wha, ua matua lona fua, ai muli ai le mea ta o le selenga. O le system la lea le atua ma lona malo mo na tangata. So se tangata lava la o le atua ma tangata malama I le malo le atua. O oio se tangata e te tau ona e toto. I le vai tau le nei ua tātou o lai, ia masuinga fo i le o langa. Le sawa o le whaateno kolosi, ia ma le sawa fo i le soifuanga o le tātou iai. To a tele tangata e mana o sele. Ai le mana o lulu. To a tele fo I tangata e fia manuia, a ele I eise mea na totoina. O le principolo le malo le atua, e le mawhai ona e toto nei, ai e sele ata e au, le aso so o ai. Le ai, o le principolo le malo le atua e te toto, ona e nofola ia mawhaatalitali, a o ina ola e mua o solo na lau. A tonu le fatua a matalau pisinisi e umi se teimi o tau fau, ai maua mai ia se polofiti ia pena o se fulu tāla le whaasilinga. Ia ona e whaatatari la ia, se ia o ina oso mailo na funga, se ia whaasolo lava ina avea mala au tele ma ua matua o na fua, ona e va ailo la ia ilona manuia. Ia po le selenga o lo Talanoa le tuspa ia, o le principal la le na. E iai inisi o principal o po le system, ia po se whainga whaavai fo i wa fausia e tangata, e Faapea e ia mo le tele o whaalau i lo o iai nei foi mai a stasio system lo fausia e tangata. O mai e au mai invest tutonu i, a invest nei e o atu le vai aso lea, ia ua maua, ia lau fia afe tā la, ia po le masina lea, fia ni tangata e te au mai, ua fia afe lau tupe maua, e o ar te minei o la lava e whaatali nei tangata i le ia la tau tupe. Ona e mafua mai, e iei le tali tonunga o tangata, ma ngaia i le awala le vaveonga e mau ai le tupe, ma ngaia le awala le vaveonga kako mau mea ai, ma ngaia le awala le vaveona mau e tatu ta avale. E le ai, o le sistema lea tua, e te toto, e te ono sai se ia o na tupu, ai a o fo ina tupu, e mua lo na lau e le tupu loa e sele. O le sistema la le nao te manao e wha manatu ia te oe, a o iai oi nei fo i vai tau a fai o nai saunga le mu ma taunga le mu lo soifua ma lo wola le nei vai tau toto ia Faapeona e toto lo nei le fatu ina ia o mai le taimi le taunga le mu ai a o la ua iai sau selenga a ua nei o tātou pei o le tangata e le tā pena ai o tātou pei o le loi o lo faatusa e le tuspa ia foi mai e tā pena i aso taunga le mu a wā aso leanga. Ia Faapea nā fo i tātou. Aua ne iai le mafau ia te i tātou e toto nei, ia ai Faapea e maua le polofiti i le aso e so o ai. Le ai. E toto nei, e iai ona la asanga. E mua lava oso lo na lau. So o ai lo na funga, se i o ina matua o na fua, ona iai leo le mea tau o le whaamanuianga po le selenga. O whaamanuianga ia po o le taiala le nā po le principal le nā o le malo le atua, so o se tangata ola, te tau na ola ai. Aua tātou te tau mawhai e skippy principal. To tōnei, ai sele atai au, ile ai se mea Faapea nā i to tono le tuspa ia. Pau lava le mea lo i to tono le tuspa ia i tangata o le atua, o tangata tāpena, e le ngā te toto, e whaatalitali, e ono sai, se ia o ina matua le fua. Ona mau ai la i o selenga. O toi whaamanatu na ia te oe. To tō nei, a wā selenga mō lau whanau le lumanai, o lau ainga le lumanai, ai mei se oe ma lau wāti nai. Ia pole a lava se tau mawhainga o e tau mawhai ai. Whaamanuia le tua ia te oe ma lau sāwalinga le nei vai aso tātou toi whailo ai, i le vai aso asau, soifua.
O le whaasirasilanga le nei o le COVID-19 furuiva. O lo iai au kilani le lapata inga vaenga whaa. O isi pito no o New Zealand, ua iai nei le lapata inga vaenga lua. E tofu i tātou ma le pito la au e whai, mo le tape ina o le COVID-19 fuluiva, ia ave se atu mai te tono o tātou community. O lona winga, ia manatua, whai se ufi fōringa i to tonu o so se no fuanga whai tele. Tau si le lua mita e wha mamao ai maisi tangata. Fufulu au lima ma wha o ngāwai la au, mo le wha mama ina. Wha mausa ulisi o nofuanga uma e te asia po le scan foi. Nofo i le fale, pe a whai wai wha mai, ma wala au le healthline mo se fautuanga o le whai o lausiaki. I le tūlanga lapata inga vaenga lua, e iai ni tūlafono fou. A whai o le aanga i atu i whafolo fale, ave la uofi fofonga, ua wha malo sia nei le whai o uofi fofonga e so se tangata, mai le se furulua tausanga malunga atu i te tonu o whale o loa ma no fuanga whaitele. E te tau fōi o na whai se ufi fofonga, pe a siasi atu i isi tangata, pe a whai e te tie whaatasi te tonu o se taavale po o se taavale lau pāsese, whaatasi maisi. Ma le malanga i lungo au wala whioa i whalawa i tele, e au fia ai no fuanga whaatari no fua afi ma pasi. O tangata whai ngā luenga o pisinisi e ngā lulu e lata ma tangata e pei o whale o tiulu ma whale kofe e te tau foi o na whai o lātou ufi fōlinga. O whale whai ngā ruenga uma ua whaamalosia nei le whaatūlanga o vaenga e whai iai scan a tangata whaatau e ala lea i le whaonga ina o le Tracer app e le COVID-19 furuiva, mai iai se api e whaamau ai tangata whioai. O i lato uma i sifurulua tausanga malunga atu, e te tau ona whaatino le whaamauina o a lato whioa inga. O whe malanga inga i le vāo pito nuu e whaatanga ina mo pito nuu o loo i lalo o le lapta inga vaenga lua, pe a whai e usta ia ta i ala lau tele e le soifua malolo ina. O malanga ngai au kilani o loo whaatapula aina. O le ai polo ka leo leo i tua o yo pito nuu mo le sua ina o whioa inga i lalo o so se vaenga o lapta inga. O whaapotoputonga uma e au fiai sauninga o whaipoiponga mamaliu. E mawhai ona whaatau nuu ai nā o le 5 tangata e mawhai ona auai, pe a potopoto i tutonu o se whale, ma le se lau le au whai o tangata i whafo. O ia tapulaa e au fiai sauninga lotu wha e ka le sia. O whaapotoputonga uma ua whaatula whanoina le moomia, o na wha maumauina o suafa o i lātou e auai. O le a fesoasoani lea mo le sailinga o fesotainga, ma ia tausi le 2 mita e wha mamao ai ma isi tangata pe a mawhai. O le a te talaina no fuanga mo a onga uma e au fiai a onga amata e o i a onga maurulunga, ma o le a iaini tapula a wha le soifua maloloina o le a wha o popoina. E pei ona tā ua, e matua wha malosia le te tau ona whai o ufi fofonga o i lātou ua ta i se furulua tau sanga ma lunga atu. Whaafetai mo le whaatinoina o lau pito la au. Ia whaau au ai pēr lo tātou ngā lulu e so tau au whaatasi e te atu i le COVID-19 furuiva.
Samoa ua whaamunia ina fo i lau whaafongaanga. I le nei a fiafi o le asosa, i le whaamalosi mai le sunga ia Pastor Kevin Uruiva. O le nei vai tau o lo te lele a whaina o tātou tangata Samoa i te tonu au kilani ma New Zealand nei. Mai a vatu le whaamalosi ma le whautuanga ina ia usita ia vaenga e pei ona umaia o whi au le soifua maloloina. Whapena fo i le nganga mo tātou tangata i Australia, Europa ma Amerika. Ma te talo pea ina ia mamao le nei whaamai mai lo tātou atunu pele o Samoa. Samoa e moliatu o lo whaanga. Po le tautua le ekalesia, whaiva matiute i ainga manu, ngā luenga pisinisi po whaiva le malo, ia whaamanuia le tua le neiva yaso, pe tātou te le fisanga i fonga, ai tātou te aleanga pe i lumo le tua i tālusanga. Mai a te le ai, tō wha soifua.